Hello and welcome back into another episode of Tobacco Road Abroad. My name's Gareth Parsons, joined by Aiden Moore. As you can tell by our demeanor, there's some certain things we want to address in this episode that we actually found quite comical, but we'll get into that. Thank you for joining in. Aiden, do you have anything? I mean, you seemed pretty adamant about this, so I'm going to let you take this one away.
Well, first off, we're going to be covering the NFL and a lot of major storylines coming into this week. First off, our semi-contractual obligation to talk about the Panthers and how they lost this week. Um, Another tough week for the Panthers, Gareth. Losing, what is it? What was it, by like
40 to
40
7.
points? 40 to
40 to
7? Yeah. I thought I was losing by 40 points, but no, we just let up 40 points. That's great. Uh, Not a good look. Jaden
30-year-old
Daniels,
Marcus Mariota.
yeah, Jaden Daniels was knocked out like after the first 10 minutes of play. And then the Panthers decided to let prime Marcus Mariota come out and just torch the entirety of the Panthers defense. So that's great.
It wasn't pretty.
It wasn't pretty. It's never pretty. It's not getting better this year. That one win against the Raiders, that was our one bit of hope. But Marcus Mariota went on to throw for 200 yards and throw two touchdowns against the Panthers, and just another tough showing for the Panthers. Uh,
Yeah.
anyway, on to stories that matter now.
Yeah, exactly. On the stories that matter.
So, well, I guess the first one. Do we want to talk about the return of Tua or the injury of Deshaun Watson? Like it's like those are the two big storylines coming into this week.
I feel like we could go a different direction than every other podcast. We could start with the Tua thing first because everyone else started with the Watson thing.
All right, so Tua's back, and he's been going on a little bit of a media frenzy right now. The media's been really highlighting his decision-making process. He's going to be coming back next week, I believe, and
I think it's this
Tyreek Hill.
week.
I don't know if this is we like there's the way they've been pressing it. I'm pretty sure it is, but he's not going. He's been saying he is not wearing a Guardian cap. Um,
And when do you want to say it? Do you want me to say
you could say it.
it? When asked if so there's a reporter that asked him you've had several concussions and obviously after talking to doctors and stuff like that, they were like, have doctors suggested you quit? And he's like, I'm gonna keep playing until I feel like I can't. And then the big one that Aiden and I have been referencing is they asked, is there anything you learned in this latest concussion? He dead ass looks at the reporter, leans into the mic and goes, that is not good to get concussions. And when asked if he learned anything.
Yeah, I think he would have learned that a little bit before, but I have a little bit of a nuanced take on the whole Guardian cap situation. So the media has really been like flaming him for not refusing to wear a Guardian cap, but I've come with a couple of statistics that like I wanted to share. First off, Tua wears what is called, I believe, a Vices helmet. This is probably the safest helmet that you can have in the NFL, and it's customly molded to each player who wears it head, and has been shown to actually have better results in reducing impact as compared to the Guardian cap. The Guardian cap is very effective, but it's only shown to be effective on older helmets that don't have the technology that some of the newer helmets like the Vices have. And I feel like there hasn't been as much consensus on like whether wearing the Guardian cap with the Vices helmet is either like going to increase the effectiveness or whether it's just redundant. So I feel like the media is doing a little bit of disservice when saying like, oh, Tua is like an absolute idiot for just refusing the Guardian cap. The Guardian cap is good in certain situations, and like if you have an older helmet, it is recommended that you get it. But in other cases, it's been shown to be more effective to have the Vices helmet, which is what players like Tua and like Patrick Mahomes have, and I feel like that's something that needs to be clarified and talked about. And just wanted to set the record straight on that. But all that aside, I am still have hesitations to like whether to coming in, whether it's this week or within this season, is a good idea. Just because like this is like he's almost had like countless concussions at this point at both the collegiate and the pro level, and that's not even considered. I don't know what his history with concussion is have been in like high school, and these things add up. But I guess if I'm the coaching staff on the Dolphins, I would try to do my best to at least keep Tua on the bench and recover for as long as he can. Personally, I don't think like I would in good conscience would ever put him out to play in a game. I know he like has the love for the game, which I can commend him for. Like he is passionate about the game and he's willing to like do everything to let his team win. But there's some point as a coaching staff where you just have to realize you got to prioritize the health of the player over the his whether over his the players for the sake of the player, because sometimes the players they just don't see what's best for their future or like their just career after football.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't know if I would put him out there in good conscience. I will say to your point about the Vices helmets, I do agree, and I've seen the same things where they said they're good helmets and like almost better than the Guardian caps. I've seen one major not complaint, but one major concern people have had with them is when they hear about the Vices, they think about the time where Patrick Mahomes' helmet shattered when he was wearing it. But if you do like your research and a deep dive into that, the Vices helmet essentially is it's still solid, but it's almost like there's a layer in there that's like a gel-like consistency that absorbs most of the blow. And if you look at the science of it in the day where his helmet shattered, it was in colder temperatures, which is going to causes things to be more rigid. And apparently it caused like the gel layer to freeze up. And that's what caused his helmet to give way. But as we know, Tua plays 90% of his games in a humid climate. So that's not really of a concern. And even on that day, when like his helmet did shatter, it was just the outer layer, like the protective layer underneath wasn't broken, and like the padding wasn't affected either. So I know that's one major concern people have had about it, but I don't really think that holds any weight. Do you?
It's a lot like newer cars now compared to like older cars. Like like a lot of like when you see like crash tests on like newer cars, like you see them crumble, and the common like theme is like, oh, they don't make them like they used to. But like sometimes cars and like in cases like helmets are designed to uh, collapse in a manner that still protects the individual inside
Yeah.
and creates like a protective layer around the individual. And does like I think that's something that a lot of people should consider, and it's an important like factor like that I feel like we often forget like when it comes to like the like scientific side of football. I'm not a scientist, but I try to do my research when it comes to things like these because the player health is always something that I'm going to prioritize. But if I had to put like money on would I rather wear an old helmet with the Guardian cap or the Vices helmet, I would probably go with Vices helmet. But would I wear a Guardian cap with the Vices helmet, that's a conversation we could have. I think there could be benefits to it. I haven't seen the research or the science around it to uh, indicate that it would be exponentially safer to wear the Guardian cap with the Vices helmet, but it could always be a like good idea. But also when it comes to like things like these, like if you wear, like let's say hypothetically you do wear the Guardian cap with the Vices helmet, there could also be like a very dangerous like psychological phenomenon happening to you where you go like, okay, I can never get injured with this because I have the Guardian cap and the Vices helmet on, and you would probably take more risks than you would otherwise, and that would probably actually lead to more injuries probably because at the end of the day you can't stop a concussion with a helmet because the impact inside your skull with your brain colliding with your skull is always going to like cause injury, and unless there's like a way you could like surgically like implant something in the brain that would uh, like stop the brain from colliding with the skull, there's always going to be concussions. But what we need to do is just try to find ways to like mitigate the impactive force of tackles and collisions of players to the ground.
Yeah, and that's like I think you kind of hit on it that concussions are always going to be a part of football or any contact sport for that matter, anything that involves contact like fighting. Like there's
Yeah,
nothing you can do because it's like unless you like you said you prevent the brain from moving, which then that presents a whole nother host of issues with like whiplash and stuff like that. That's there's no way to win here. When you have stuff that's like violent like this, you can only do so much.
yeah, and like this would probably be like a video I'll talk about later, but you just sparked something in my mind. It was just like the concept of like fighting and like CTE and like how that is in fighting sports. I think there's a very fair argument to be made that like sports like MMA have done better to prevent in like long-term injuries of the brain as compared to sports like boxing. And that's something I could probably get into like in another podcast in the future. But I've done my research in that, and I if I had to pick a sport which would be better for the brain, I would choose MMA over like boxing any day. But like as I just keeping it on to football right now, uh, it's going to be an inevitability, but we just need to find ways to prioritize players' safety, and sometimes we have to do it against the will of the player. And I feel like I don't know how I feel allowing Tua to play again, but then yeah, again, it's his personal choice, and he seems to be making it with full conviction.
Yeah, and it's concussions are scary, and I know he's got to make the decision that's best for him. I know it's nowhere near as severe as like what we saw with earlier today with the NC State quarterback, where he had to medically retire. But at some point, you got to be wondering at one point will the doctors tell him he needs to retire? I will say when people ask about the doctors and he says I'm going to stop playing when I stop feeling good, part of me thinks that there are some doctors that are telling him to stop playing just by kind of and I realize with us talking about it, we can't really portray like the tonality in which he said it, but he said it in kind of like a snappy tonality, which made me think that certain professionals he had been in contact with had said that, if you know what I mean. Like, and it could have just been that the way he didn't like the way the reporter asked the question,
Hmm.
but like I thought it was a very fair, the way he asked it, and I feel like it's a very fair question to ask. Like, what are his healthcare professionals saying? Because obviously, other people who have had similar concussions to him have told another quarterback, no, dude, you need to be done. And I realized Tua has not had the same issues with concussions that Grayson McCall has had. He had a brain bleed at the end of last year, which is what ended his season with Coastal. And I realized that's like a whole nother level of severity. But in Tua's concussions, we've seen him have what's called a fencing response. I think we've brought it up on here. Shannon Sharp incorrectly called it rigor mortis. Tua's gonna be having that if he continues to have concussions, but Tua's not dead yet, so he can't have rigor mortis. So for those who don't know, essentially a fencing response is you have traumatized the brain so much it's starting to misfire, and it will cause you to do, like, you're not aware of it, but it will cause your muscles to do things that aren't good for it. Like your fingers will contort in awful configurations that look like you're ripping them out. Your forearms will be like this. If you go and look at like the Tua hit, people were making jokes about how it looks like he's throwing up gang signs because his fingers were all like this and like wrapped around each other, and he was like kind of shaking. Fencing response. They also call it a fencing response because there's certain beliefs that it might be the brain firing, trying to keep itself alive, but there's not much evidence to support that. That's just a theory.
Mm-hmm.
But from what we know about it, it's just the brain essentially gets hit so hard that there are fabricated nerve signals telling your muscles to move when your brain didn't actually send those out. Which that's still severe, but I wouldn't say that's as severe as a hematoma, which is what. But like I said, would you think that Tua's doctors are telling him not to play based on those comments?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think there would be a doctor. Well, you have to realize they're professional. Doctors in their profession have the one goal of protecting the health and safety of a player. And like that means they are not going to consider things like games or like monetary impact, for better or for worse. Sometimes doctors might overstep in this and say like, okay, like a doctor might go like, it's never okay to play football at all, because if your goal as a doctor is to protect the health and safety of a player, you're going to go like, okay, the most healthy thing for you to do is to quit football and just go about a completely different lifestyle. Where nuance needs to be found is you take the advice and the like professional expertise of the doctor, and you take it for what it's worth, where the doctor is always going to be prioritizing your health. Um, I wouldn't say to like the extreme or like to a like an extent that's like beyond reasonable, but that's their job. And the job of a coach is to also consider health and safety, but also a job for a coach is to um, find the best way to win. And these are like different prerogatives and different motives that these professionals have in their careers. And it's something that you as a player need to take all this information, take it with a grain of salt, and figure out what's the best way to go about life for you in particular. You might think like, okay, I take into consideration everything that the doctor said, and yes, they're advising me to not play, but also like they're advising me like different things, and the commonality and like common ground needs to be found on both parties where we take into account like everything. But in the case of Tua, he's just had so many concussions to the point where I'm like, okay, I would just listen to the doctors at this point, because like at this point you're at a point where you don't need to be worrying about winning or like your monetary financial standing. Like I don't know what the Tagovailoa family's like personal like history with like wealth is, but I would imagine now Tua's got his bag and he's doing well monetarily, where he doesn't need to go back into football, but he might just like, he obviously really loves it. But you've just suffered so many concussions at this point where I would probably take what the doctors say with more gravity or like gravitas than like what like coaches or like fans would be saying at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And I know, like you said, you don't know what their monetary situation is, but his several last couple contracts have been worth several millions of dollars. Bro's set up for generational wealth at this point. Like, and I think, like you said, to your point, I think it's just he likes the game so much at this point.
if he didn't like the game, he would not be at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, there are cases where like, okay, you're just a super athlete and you're trying to get your money. But 9 out of 10 NFL players love their profession, and I would say probably even more. But they just love the sport so much and they can't imagine a life without it. And that's something that I feel like uh, we need to do better as like a society when it comes to like helping athletes move beyond their sport and like find purpose outside their sport, because I feel like we build around like this notion that this is what you are a football player. It's not who you are, it's like what you are. And that happens in like a lot of professions. So whether it be like you're in the military, whether you're a firefighter, uh, doctors, like surgeon, we've built this culture around us where it seems like you've gained most of your identity in what makes you money, or what everybody tells you you're best at. And that's good, but you also need to find value and importance in like other aspects of life. That's what makes like a good living experience. Like, you're not just a football player, but you're a brother, a father. I don't know what Tua's like situation, like family is like, but
Yeah.
finding purpose in your community and what you provide uh, to like people other than just football is something that I feel like we need to focus on more as a culture. And I think that would like greatly improve like the mental health of not only current players but also retired players.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I have anything else to add. I feel like we've covered that. I just feel like, you know, be different, start with the Tua thing rather than, the the incident, the
The
elephant in the room.
incident. All right. Let's jump into it, because I'm going to be honest. I'm disappointed with everyone. I'm disappointed with. Uh, so for those of you who don't know, Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles, I believe, and will be out for the season. And upon being injured, the Cleveland Browns fans booed. Oh, well, not booed. They cheered that he got injured. And okay, so this is a very complex issue, and like, we're Deshaun Watson has, I believe, 20 plus sexual
33.
assault. Third,
33.
holy shit! He has 33 sexual assault allegations that he has had over. What does that say? Karma is a bitch. Okay. He has 33 plus sexual assault allegations. And we had not started this podcast like when Deshaun Watson like was traded to the Browns. But I will give you my perspective on that. When the Browns traded basically the house and gave Deshaun Watson a big contract for playing for the Browns, basically like ousting Baker Mayfield, I was very against this. I do not like Deshaun Watson's history, and I understand that, like, I think we probably consider athletes to be role models in instances where they shouldn't be. I'm a fan of the UFC. That has horrible people in there, but the NFL is different. And the NFL has been trying to build the image of athletes should be good people for the community. They promote the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. They're really trying to hammer home the fact that their athletes are morally like on the right track. They're at least trying to. And they have failed at this at sometimes. And I felt at the time.
Rashi Rice. Sorry, my bad. Keep going.
Ray Rice is Ray Rice.
Oh, I said Rashi Rice. He got in another car accident.
Oh my gosh. I was thinking about Ray Rice. But okay. I was very against Deshaun Watson being traded to the Browns, and I have not been a Deshaun Watson fan. And most of the fans of the Cleveland Browns are very much against having Deshaun Watson as their quarterback, and they have been vocal throughout the entirety of Deshaun Watson's tenure on the Browns. They have made it known that they are not happy with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson has also been performing very poorly this year. Some people may have said that Deshaun Watson is almost as good as a person as he is a football player right now. Now, would I say this? No, but that is a funny joke. Some of the Browns players, when Deshaun Watson, like after the game, were saying that they were very and yeah, James Winston and who else? Who else on the team? Like I believe I saw. Uh, Hang on, I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now.
All good, all good.
Yeah, but a lot of the players were saying that they were very disappointed in the fans for for cheering that Deshaun Watson got injured, and for the this is okay. So, like Myles Garrett said in an interview that Deshaun Watson was okay, and
A
I
model
believe
citizen.
for the most part of his NFL career, which that most is doing a lot of work right there. But do I think it's a morally good thing to cheer for somebody getting injured? I I'm not upset that Deshaun Watson is not playing anymore. And I'll say that. And I'll also say if you're a Browns fan who was fine with Deshaun Watson playing before, but is booing because he started playing poorly this year, I'd say that's very bad. That's a bad thing. Okay. But for most Browns fans that I know and that I've seen, they've seemed to be very against Deshaun Watson playing from the beginning. So technically, so they are very consistent in this fact. Like they have been consistent throughout. I think they would have cheered if he got cut. I think they would have cheered if he retired because they just don't want him there. And if I'm a Browns fan, I don't want him there either, just because like I thought it was just over 20 before this podcast. It's 33 now.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was. I think it was pretty close to 30, and then there was like 3 more came out within the last week.
Okay, so like literally, I count on my hands, count on my toes, count on Gareth's hands. And
We still don't have enough
we still don't have enough. We're gonna have to use Gareth's toes at this point
to count.
to count, to fully count the amount of sexual assault. Okay, technically, they are accusations. Technically. Do I believe that they happened? Most likely, yes, because the fact that he paid all of them off. And listen, as a famous person, like, I give you like 1 like false accusation, there might be a crazy fan out there that like just wants clout. I can give you one. 33 of your masseuses?
The fact that you've had to have more than 5 and it's not because you changed teams, there's a lot, even
Listen,
without the allegations.
okay, like this is like probably one of the hardest like segments that like I've had to try to navigate because I understand as a player you're disappointed that the fans are booing your quarterback. But on the other hand, Deshaun Watson is a bad person,
Hmm.
I feel like. Now, do I like would I cheer him getting injured? I don't know, but I would say that like I don't even know what I would like. I I would say that like I Garrett, help me here.
I, while I don't think you should ever cheer to someone getting hurt, but if there's nuance in the situation like this, I do think it might perchance be permissible.
It might
If
be
no,
permissible. Yes. Yes. And
now
I like if I felt like the Browns were booing were cheering because he was just playing badly, obviously that's a horrible thing to do. But and even like there's a line. There's a line where it's like, okay, yes, he's a bad person, but he doesn't deserve like there's some things where like, okay, yes, you're a bad person, but you don't deserve that. Deshaun Watson is a bad person, and I don't think it's the worst, like it's not the worst punishment he could have had.
I think I
Like
saw a lightning bolt come down from the heavens and hit that Achilles, if I'm not being wrong.
it's
That
like
Achilles moved a little too much just from falling.
I mean like I'm not sad. I'm not sad for Deshaun Watson. I think he's going like for better or for worse, he's going to be fine. For better or for worse, he is fine. Take that with what you will. Ending your football season is not the worst thing that can happen to a person, for better or for worse. I never want to cheer for somebody being injured, but I also never want to be in a position where I have to watch a person who's been accused of sexual assault 33 plus times to be on TV every week. And it was like one thing, like, I don't even think he denied what he did. Did he ever? Did he ever deny it? Like,
If he did, it did make news.
yeah, it really didn't make news. Like, there was never really a campaign of like, oh, I'm innocent. Like, this is a witch. It's almost like he was like, yeah, I did it, type type deal.
The icing on the cake for me was Jameis Winston's post game interview going, I just have so much love in my heart, man. And people make mistakes. Bro openly admitted that Deshaun did it. And he's like, Jesus calls us to love. Who did
I
Jesus
love
hang out
that,
with? Jesus hung out with the tax collectors and the prostitutes and
and
the murderers and the rapists. I'm like, no, he did not hang out with the rapists. Jesus did not hang out with the rapists. And he's like, but I've got so much love in my heart, man. And he's just, you never kick a man while he's down. I'm like, Deshaun, that's a lot coming from someone who's stolen crab legs.
Okay.
Like, okay,
Well,
if
Jameis Winston, that
Deshaun
was
got
the Jameis Winston crab leg situation. I'm pretty sure that was just a case of NIL before NIL was NIL. Let's be real.
oh no, I'm just saying if if it was Jameis's Achilles that tore that season after the crab legs, I'd say, and if fans cheered for that, I'd say that's not warranted. That is awful. That's not warranted. He stole $40 crab legs. Who cares? Okay.
Wasn't Jameis Winston also accused of sexual assault at FSU?
I think it was like one case though. It wasn't like 33.
Okay, yeah. Like that's kind of my line right there where I'm like, okay, it's a little bit iffy. Like here's like Jameis Winston's like iffy. Like, okay, maybe. Like I don't know. He said, she said. And like this is like Jameis Winston right here. Deshaun Watson's all the way over here.
He's off the screen.
Yeah, he's off the screen right there. And I think Jameis Winston's I like watching Jameis Winston. He's a funny dude. And I understand like the point he's trying to make, but time and place. One important thing about, yes, Jesus does forgive, but also you have to seek forgiveness. That's a very important, that you have to reconcile with the fact that you have done wrong. And what Jesus hung out with all the hated in society, but he also said, go out and sin no more, live a life in accordance to me.
Don't
Like,
sin 32 more times.
Jesus will always forgive. Jesus will always forgive, but you also must seek like forgiveness and penance and make up for the evil that you have done. This is a very touchy subject. This is probably like, I was having like jokes with the Diddy Party one, but like this is like landmine central.
Indeed.
Because like at least with the Diddy Party it was like, okay, everybody's horrible. Like this sucks. Like everybody's horrible.
Everybody.
But like there's so many bad faith actors in this that I'm like, I almost didn't want to touch this with like a 30-foot pole, but I feel like it's important that we talk about it and also bring to light, like, even though this is a small podcast, I think it's still important to always highlight the like horrible like things that like Deshaun Watson did.
Yeah, we
So
just can't ignore it.
literally you cannot ignore it. That's like that's like being an OJ Simpson fan. It's just keep on harping like, oh, he had so many good rushing yard seasons. Okay, yeah, kind of murdered a person though. So that's really, that really kind of
Admitted
put
to it.
that really puts an asterisk next to the yard achievements. But yeah, anyway, let's just move on. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it to college now. Let's
We beat
recap.
that horse dead.
Oh yeah, that is deader than dirt. Anyway, week 8 was a pretty big week in college football. Some pretty like fun games to watch. I want to eventually talk about Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee. But Gareth, what do you want to cover the state game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the state game was didn't start out good, but I feel like it finished good.
Yeah, they won.
Once once again, I feel like the play calling just we've waited too long into the season to kind of drop the conservative play calling. There's a time and a place for it. Yes, against Tennessee, coming out with a conservative play calling to try and control the clock, keep their offense off field. Smart decision. But playing conservative against Wake Forest, not smart decision. And it took us going down 10 to Cal to the point of me almost throwing my phone for them to start scoring. Like, I had never seen the offense this creative in the last 5 years. Like, trick plays, like downfield shots. Like, what the fuck are those? I haven't seen those since 2021. But all around, it was a good win. We kind of seem to have figured it out. I think CJ Bailey's the man for the future. If we can keep him in KC next year, it could be exciting. CJ does not look like a true freshman out there. Dude is fucking slinging the rock like a seasoned pro. Now, has he made some freshman mistakes at times? Absolutely. Is he a little hesitant to wait for reads to develop at times? Yes. Does he shy away to the check down a little too fast? I mean, yeah. But he doesn't play like a freshman, I will say. I am like comforted by the fact that he at least gets to the check down and doesn't go, fucking I'm gonna fit it between three defenders. like some freshmen would do that. But I feel like he does have a good balance of knowing when to take the one-on-one 50-50 shot versus dumping it down to a running back, taking our 3 to 5 yards. And that's not saying I've had frustrations where we have a wide open seam route and he just completely ignores it. But that's being a freshman. And I will take that freshman mistake over interceptions or fumbles all day. I will take missing a seam shot or a wide open vert shot here and there and taking our 6 yards instead over an interception because he's at least keeping the ball. And like I said, the defense figured it out against Cal. I will say, a little bit of luck. We were the deciding vote to let them in the ACC, so they kind of owed us one. So I consider Cal and NC State even after that missed field goal. Calgary loses again, which, that's unfortunate. Outside of the state game, I did want Cal to do well, but what's up?
So last week you were talking about how you are not satisfied with the performance that Doran has been putting onto the field as coach over the past couple years. Do you believe that Dave Doran is or was on the hot seat, or do you think that this game has kind of done a good job in helping secure his job for next year?
For me or for the athletic department? Because those are two very different answers right now. Like, I mean, for the athletic department, probably. For me, no. Like, you beat Cal. Like, okay, was it a good win? Did the offense look good once we figured it out? Yeah, the offense looked the best it's looked in 2 years. But for me, in order for me to be okay with giving him another year, he's going to have to win out. Like, are we going to win out? No. But he's going to have to win out and go 8-4 for me to consider giving him another year. Now, Russ, I'm saying that as if I make the decisions. I think the athletic department was going to give him another year if we make it to 6 wins and he beats either Duke or Carolina. I feel like that's what the department's going to do. Because that's pretty much what's happened in the past when Doran was on the hot seat and didn't. In the past, when Doran's been on the hot seat, he either gets to 9 wins and we finish around 15 to 17 in the AP poll, or he goes 6-6 and beats either Duke or Carolina. And the AD goes, well, he beat a rival. Which, it is important to beat your rivals, but like if we went 1-11 and beat UNC, I'm not happy. Like, that's cool and all.
I'm really not happy.
Like yeah, no, Aiden's really not happy.
I'm really done.
Like, I'd be like, if that happened this season, I'd be like, that's groovy that we beat UNC and all. I've been miserable for 11 weeks. Wow, I'm happy for 1 week. Like, that's still like, if Doran did that, the athletic department would give him another year. Me, I'd be like, get his ass off the field. Now, like I always say on here, I'm not advocating for him not to have a job. Like, I realize that is his livelihood. Does he probably have enough money? Yes, but like, I wouldn't advocate for him to never be a coach again because, like that, like I said, that's his livelihood. But sorry, what were you gonna
say? Nothing.
But I don't. I mean, unfortunately, do I think he's done enough? Do I think in the athletic department's eyes he's done enough to stay? Yes. Do I unfortunately think this is going to get thrown on our coordinator and our coordinator is going to get fired? Yes. I do think at the end of the season, regardless, we are probably going to have a new offensive coordinator, if not defensive coordinator, because I think Tony Gibson, our DC, is getting frustrated with him constantly bailing out the offense and then the offense going 3-and-out and having to send a gas defense back out there. But, I digress. We got plenty of time to talk about that later. But, overall, good win. CJ's looking like the man for the future. And it's been impressive. So that's all I got to say. I will say he's impressed me for a true freshman. So
UNC had a bye week this week, so win.
Aiden was not on suicide watch this week.
Nah. I'll never be on suicide watch for UNC football. I don't expect that much. But we'll talk more about UNC when we get into next week's games. But as it pertains to the recap, a lot of good games. What do you want to start off with?
Well, I mean, there's one monumental one that I think flew under the radar because of all these games. And I think it pertains to the team that you and I have a mutual distaste for.
Well, that's it. Let's get out. Well, we're still in week 8. We're still in week 8 right now. So.
Oh no, we are. Duke beat Florida State for the first time in Duke football history. Duke has never beaten Florida State. They've played them 21. They had played them 21 times up until last weekend, and they were 0-21. And Duke is now 1-21 all time against Florida State. I will say I watched a little bit of that game. And for how good Duke has looked over the course of the season, Duke did not look good in this game. It was ugly. Duke won 23-16. How the fuck do you let Florida State score 16? That it's just their offense looks even worse without DJ. You need to put it up. The offense looks worse. Their backup is arguably worse. But I mean, it's a monumental win. Probably emotional for them too, having never beaten Florida State, which I mean, State and Carolina kind of have done that on the reg for a while. So
yeah, but hey, shout out to Duke.
I will say that is a big thing. Any other game or any?
Keeping it to the ACC, Miami won an absolute shootout against Louisville. That was a very interesting game. Absolute just offensive showcase on Miami's front and Louisville's front. I'm not necessarily that high on Miami's defense, but Cam Ward keeps on showing that he finds ways to win, and definitely the best quarterback in ACC play right now. Arguably, probably some of the best quarterback play in the nation, but that's definitely that would be up for debate. But as it pertains to ACC, I was very impressed by his game, throwing 4 touchdowns for 319 yards. Tyler Shaw from Louisville also had an impressive game. He ended up throwing for more yards, 342 for 4 touchdowns. So overall, just absolutely offensive fire show, absolute barn burner. I enjoyed watching that one. That was a good game to watch. It was just entertaining football. Loved watching it. Do we want to keep it in the ACC so far? I think I do.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Let's. We talked about Duke FSU. Recapping a prediction that we made last week. I said that Clemson should be on upset watch against Virginia. Virginia did not have the best showing. They kept it close in the first half, just fell apart in the third quarter, but made a valiant effort for trying to come back, scoring 21 points in the fourth quarter. But in the end, it wasn't enough. Clemson handles Virginia 48-31. I'm still pretty impressed. They should be keeping in with the ACC. There was a game last week that I said Clemson was on upset watch for,
against Virginia. Virginia pulled off a somewhat valiant effort against Clemson. I was still very impressed by their performance. Wasn't as great as I thought it would be, but Virginia was able to keep it relatively close, being 48-31. Uh, Virginia tried to come back in the fourth quarter, but just wasn't able to hold off the Clemson offense. Virginia relatively fell apart in the latter part of the second quarter and the start of the third quarter. Clemson still just remains to me one of the strongest teams in the ACC, but Virginia is definitely on the up now, and I will be watching them more as they play UNC this week. But also in the future, I feel like this is a under the radar performance for Virginia because obviously it wasn't a win, but I'm still very impressed with Virginia. And if I'm a Hoos fan of the Cavaliers, I'm still happy with Virginia. Notre Dame versus Georgia Tech. Notre Dame handily took care of Georgia Tech, took care of business. Very happy to see that for Notre Dame, and I'm more confident in them as each week goes on, especially with them playing Navy this week. I'm pretty confident in Notre Dame being able to win out for the rest of the season. And this Georgia Tech game just goes to prove it because Georgia Tech is a very strong opponent, but they were able to handle them 31-13. Pretty good game. Last game of the ACC that I really want to mention is SMU versus Stanford. SMU is just proving that they are a force to be reckoned with the ACC. They are 6-1 now and undefeated in conference play, and they just have an absolute. The Ponies have an absolute pony show when it comes to their offensive production, being able to score 40 points, but also handily in the first half, just taking care of absolute business against Stanford, being able to score 31 points to just Stanford 7. I'm looking forward to just watching more SMU football and being introduced to SMU football more and more as they're a part of the ACC.
I agree. And I really thought Stanford was going to be. I really thought Stanford was going to have a year with how they opened the year, beating Syracuse at Syracuse. Like I thought they'd have. I mean, they're sitting at 2-5 right now. I thought they would have a better record than they do right now. But they did kind of start off the season with some tough ones. I mean, obviously, they started off the season with TCU, which not a great team, but was probably better than them. Then Clemson, Notre Dame, like that's a tough Clemson, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame's a tough stretch there for them. So, but at the end of the day, SMU shocked us because that first weekend, Aiden and I are sitting there like, why the fuck did we let them in the ACC? At least fucking Stanford won. Like at least Stanford won.
They SMU won against Nevada, but it wasn't impressive.
Yeah, no, they came back and won, but it was Aiden and I were texting each other like, what have we done? What have we done to the ACC? But they do look. All it took was their star quarterback last year went down with an injury, kind of derailed their season. He came back this year, wasn't impressive. Just the same spark wasn't there. They switched from Preston Stone to Kevin Jennings, and Kevin Jennings has just absolutely lit it up this season. I think that change is kind of what spurred this. But moving on.
I wanted to give a shout out to Iowa State. They did not look good against UCF, but Rocco Becht was able to just find a way to win and really kept his composure in the fourth quarter and was able to bring what I think was a very underrated comeback win against UCF. UCF still is, I don't know how I feel about them in the Big 12, but they're definitely a underrated force to be reckoned with. I would put them, they're definitely on like some upset watch against BYU this week. But Iowa State just finding ways to win. One thing about me, I never try to really get on a team when they just barely beat a team that they were supposed to handle handedly. Because, in my opinion, championship teams always find ways to win in the games that are close but shouldn't be close. Like that's more impressive for me as a football fan, just watching these close games that shouldn't be close because it's college football, and just finding a way to win. Because at the end of the day, to me, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's when you're a team that's that big, you're going to have a target on your back. So teams are always going to give you their A game. Like they're always going to be mentally zoned in and focused on that game. So you're always getting teams' best. And like you say, when you really haven't trailed and you haven't been challenged a season, like during the season, and a team kind of comes out strong, you a lot of times won't know how to react because you haven't been in that situation that year. So it can really speak volumes when a team's able to kind of just figure it out during a game and just kind of escape, which I know it all isn't always pretty, and the media will fucking rip them to death for not winning by as much as they should. But it still can be impressive because it's like Iowa State really hasn't been in a situation like that this season at all, and I feel like they could they have had like the conversation Aiden and I had last week off air. Could it have been handled better? Yes. But they survived, so thus they move on. Anywhere else in the Big 12? Only really notable result there outside of that is, obviously you've got BYU escaping Oklahoma State. Another example of just kind of like Al Davis just saying, just fucking win, baby. Kansas State took business. Yeah, Kansas State took care of business against West Virginia. Wasn't ever really close. It was 20 or it was 17. 17-10 at halftime is not bad. But then West Virginia just kind of ran out of gas at the end of the game. Third quarter they were held scoreless, which in a offensive minded against an offensive minded team like Kansas State can't really do that. The quarterback play wasn't great either for West Virginia. Their quarterback was only 9 of 19 for 85 yards, but he did have a decent day on the ground with 11 carries for 90. Only other thing I'll say in the Big 12, Utah, the fall off continues. They lost to TCU 13-7. Cam Rising's absence is being felt. So on to the next. Any conference you want to jump to now?
Do we want to jump to SEC or Big Ten?
Up to you.
Well, I want to talk about Indiana, Nebraska. Indiana, I thought this game was going to be a lot closer. I was more high on Nebraska than I probably admitted on air. I thought this was going to be like a sneaky lookout game for Indiana. Well, not even sneaky. This was probably one of Indiana's big tests, comparatively speaking, to their schedule. Nebraska, they were able to beat a good Colorado team. And I was a little bit more high on Nebraska, but I still picked Indiana. But Indiana absolutely handled the Cornhuskers. Just an absolute offensive showcase. Scoring 56 points against Nebraska is impressive. I was more high on Nebraska's defense in the Big Ten. I thought they were going to at least put some restraint on Indiana. And they were, and they did for the first quarter, where Indiana only scored 7 points, but then came just scoring an absolute just dogpiling. 21 points in the second quarter, 28 points in the second half. This was a absolute bludgeoning, and I'm high on Indiana. And if I'm a Hoosier fan, the time is now, as I've never seen this type of success in Indiana football, and I'm excited for them.
I am too. I'm honestly surprised they weren't ranked higher after that win. Because what are they right now? 16?
Yeah, they're higher than Alabama. I know that. I think they're 15, maybe.
Possibly. Yeah, I was kind of hoping they'd be a little higher. I feel like they've kind of
Indiana is
proven
13. Indiana's 13 right now.
Oh, they've kind of proven themselves, but I feel like they'll be on a little bit more of a watch playing Washington this week. I know Washington's 4-3, but it is Washington. Regardless, that name still holds some significance, regardless of them having kind of a down here. But elsewhere in the Big Ten, we had Illinois beating Michigan 21-7. Illinois just kind of handling business. Michigan still kind of looking lost. Michigan did have more passing yards than Army this week. That was one thing we had joshed them for in the past, was consistently being outpassed by Army and Navy. But
the slide for Michigan's continuing. I'm high on Illinois. I think they took care of business and not an impressive offensive showcase, but very scrappy. I like their 2-point conversion that they converted in the third quarter. That was it was fun to watch and a very interesting way to get to 21, comparatively speaking. But overall, good day to be in Illini, and I believe that wraps it up for the Big Ten. Let's bring it to the SEC now. Main game of the day, the highlights and just the media frenzy that was surrounding this game was Georgia, Texas. I picked Texas to win this game. I was not high on Georgia whatsoever, but Georgia just absolutely was able to take care of business in the first half and fell off a little bit in the second half, but only allowed 15 points in the second half, and all of that came in third quarter. Georgia just proving that I don't know if that Alabama loss was a fluke or if it was I can't get a read on the SEC right now, if I'm going to be completely honest, but I'm high on Georgia again, and just an absolute good showing for the Bulldogs. And if I'm Texas, one thing I do have to critique, though, is I did not understand the pulling of Quinn Ewers in the second corner to allow just Arch Manning getting absolutely bludgeoned for like 2 drives, I believe. That was a weird decision in my mind, and that just creates like more controversy in the QB room and just the mindset of Texas. I believe Quinn Ewers is their guy, and I like Arch Manning. I have said this before. I think he is the future of Texas. But just putting your not freshman, but like basically redshirt freshman QB in a game with like that bad of a situation is not good on the psyche, and just does not create good team morale. But Quinn Ewers was able to come back in the second half and score 2 touchdowns. I'm still high on Quinn Ewers, but I'm just questioning the decision making by the coaches on that one.
I agree. Although I do think these two will meet again.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely in the SEC. I think either they're both going to be playoff teams and they'll meet in the playoffs, or they'll meet again in the SEC championship, because I don't see Texas losing another game. And I really don't. If Texas doesn't lose another game, I don't see them not making the SEC championship. Bama already has 2 SEC losses. The only other team that I feel like could make a claim to the SEC championship outside of that would be LSU. Although looking at the SEC conference standings right now, the current SEC championship would not include Georgia. It would not include Tennessee. It would not include Missouri. It would not include Vanderbilt. And it would not include Alabama. The current SEC championship, if the season ended today, would be Texas A&M LSU. And oddly enough, for the first time in history, Vanderbilt is above Alabama in the SEC standings.
Let's go.
But I will say, do I think Texas A&M will stay in that position? No. Because don't Texas A&M and LSU play this week? Don't Texas A&M and LSU play this week?
I
too?
believe so. Yeah.
Yep, Texas A&M, Illinois. So this will change. This will indeed change. One of those teams will
Vanderbilt's
not
going to
be
be in the SEC championship.
Vanderbilt does play Texas and Georgia and Tennessee coming up in the next 4 weeks. Vanderbilt has the fucking gauntlet. They play Texas, Georgia, and
They control
Tennessee.
their own destiny.
Oh, they do get Texas and Tennessee at home. And they put up a net in front of what will be in front of where the Texas and Tennessee fans sit, so they can't throw trash on the field to get another call overturned. Which, for those of you who missed it, I will agree, it was a bad call. Did they eventually get to the right call? Yes. But even Matthew McConaughey, who's a diehard Texas fan, tweeted out saying this sets a dangerous precedent.
Yeah.
That by fans throwing trash on the field, they get a call overturned. He goes, regardless of if it being the right call. Was it the right call? Yes. But you can't know. And I know in past years, Tennessee's gotten in trouble for that as well. There was one game, one of my roommates, Preston, his girlfriend's was a Tennessee student. And she called us one night, like, what, Kendall, what's up? Like, why are you calling us? Like, you're supposed to be at the Tennessee game. And she goes, watch what happens when we come back from commercial break. They kicked all the Tennessee student section out for throwing trash. So there's historical precedence for this. So I think it's funny. And the Vanderbilt, not even the AD, the Vanderbilt president just said it's a preventative measure. Unfortunately, I think this preventive precaution is going to mean there's no controversial calls in those games. But I'd love to see Texas fans just hopelessly hurl trash at the net. That would be my epitome for that game.
Absolutely. But let's segue from Texas. You're bringing up Tennessee to bring up Tennessee beat Alabama 24-17. I don't know if this is a win because Tennessee is great or just because Alabama's sliding right now. I still think Alabama is a strong team, but just the culture around Alabama has really slided after the Georgia game so far. Like a close game against South Carolina, losing against Vandy, losing against Tennessee. I don't know what's going on in Alabama right now. All I will say is this: I don't believe under Nick Saban we would have a QB sneak where two wide receivers fake jump shot passes on the field. I have no idea what the hell that was. But I mean, innovation that excites. I don't know, but just an absolute I think it's a bad showing for Alabama. I'm happy for Tennessee. I think Tennessee proved to be they're still a good team. Maybe the Arkansas game was a fluke, but right now I'm saying this is more of a Alabama loss than a Tennessee win. But if I'm a Vols fan, I'm still very happy nonetheless. Like this is probably marking like a good shift for volunteer program. Tennessee won 2 years ago. They won this year. The rivalry dynamics are definitely shifting if you're a Tennessee fan. And this like rivalry game is more up for grabs now going into the future than it's ever been so far. Except probably like in the 90s or something, like in the 90s when they had Peyton Manning. But like it's no longer just dreading to play Alabama. You're excited to play Alabama now if you're a Tennessee fan.
Yeah, and I will say this is an insult I haven't heard it being said about this, but it's an insult I heard around 2018, 2019. no offense to Kalen DeBoer, but I feel like the Alabama offense is a very 2014 offense. It's just kind of fuck it, let's have a running quarterback who can kind of throw. No shot to Milroe. Milroe's got a very pretty deep ball and it's very accurate. But I kind of feel like Alabama's whole MO on offense is either fuck it Ryan Williams down there somewhere or let Jalen cook. And while I do know like Kalen DeBoer is known for having like these fantastic offenses, and Alabama is an exciting offense to watch, but like if their whole offense kind of really only is two players. Now I know Jalen Miller, one of their wide receivers, did lead the game with, or no, sorry, that's I read the wrong thing. No, Ryan Williams did lead the stat line with 73 yards, touchdown, 8 receptions, but if it's just those two guys, you can kind of really scheme around that. From what I've seen, Alabama is really only dangerous when they go 5 wide because they're spreading you out, and they give Milroe an option to either run the ball. They say if it's not there immediately, he takes off. But I know there's easy ways to stop that. But when they spread you out with 5 wide receivers, that's hard to stop. But Alabama, I feel like they're just like we've said on here. When you get predictable, you get easy to stop. And I feel like Alabama is just kind of predictable right now with the way their offense goes. And they've been predictable in the past, but in the past they've been predictable in the sense of, oh, we're gonna get run the fuck over, and they run you over. But like you said, I don't think this looks like a Saban Alabama team. This they don't look like an Alabama team to me. They're still dominant like one, but they don't give me the vibes. They don't look like an Alabama team to me.
Absolutely. But the last SEC game that I really want to recap today is one that I don't think is going to have any playoff implications. I don't think it's really going to save the season of the team that won, which is weird to say because they're 6-1 right now. But Mizzou pulling off the win against Auburn. This was just a feel-good win for Mizzou and a Brady Cook legacy game. Brady Cook has been going through a tumultuous career, a career with ups and downs at Mizzou. And I think this game is going to solidify his legacy in Mizzou lore. There's games that you experience as a fan of a team where you just fall in love with a player that might not be the best statistically, might not be the most flashy, and might just be a good just remember when this player played type of game. And that's going to be this game for Brady Cook. I don't see Mizzou really making a big run in the playoffs. I might not even see them going into the playoffs. But if I'm a Mizzou fan, I'm taking this win against Auburn. Auburn's not the best, but I'm taking this win, and I'm always going to remember it. Just the absolute heart. Brady Cook was taken out of the game, sent to the hospital, came back later, and helped drag Mizzou into a win on this game. And this is just a feel good legacy game that people are going to remember if you're a Mizzou fan. And it's why I love football. It's just these type of games with these type of players where we go like, hey, remember when Tommy Rees played for Notre Dame? Yeah, he wasn't the best, but damn it, he loved Notre Dame, and he would have died for Notre Dame on that field. Hey, remember when Jacoby Brissett, maybe not the most memorable NC State quarterback, but like not a Phillip Rivers, not a Russell Wilson, but damn it, he was an NC State quarterback through and through. That's what I see with Brady Cook. Just like, damn it, he is a Mizzou quarterback. He bleeds the yellow and black, and just a feel-good game for me.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy because apparently there were people who saw him on the back of the Gator in the parking lot being taken to the ambulance to take him to the hospital. And then they saw him come back and they were tweeting, they're like, someone tweeted like Brady Cook's in the parking lot, and then the next second he's on the field. And they
That's
went
some
stagnant while he was at the
WWE.
hospital.
That's some WWE like Undertaker coming back. put the music on the speakers, and he just comes rushing out on the field. That's almost scripted right there. That's almost scripted.
They went stagnant when he went to the hospital. They were down 21-3 to start the fourth quarter. And like you said, motherfucker scored 18 points in the fourth quarter to drag them over the line. He came back and drugged them over the line. But that's a feel good one. The only other game I'll point out is the Spencer Rattler game, South Carolina versus Oklahoma. That game was ugly. The phrase on the internet going around, not about this game, but like the popular phrase right now for college football on the internet is called BTA, belt to ass. That's exactly what this game was. It was like, I think it was either 35-6 or 35-9. And even Spencer Rattler got in on the phone. For those of you who don't know, Spencer Rattler was a quarterback at Oklahoma. Lost out to Caleb Williams, transferred to South Carolina. Never really had a good year, but he like Aiden, you were saying, he's one of those guys where he was a South Carolina guy through and through. Like he maybe wasn't the best, but he had games where it was just like that's what it means to be a South Carolina quarterback. Like taking a 7-5 South Carolina team and beating a Clemson team that has playoff hopes in Death Valley. And like he did that several times with them, and it's just like he even tweeted after the game. He like tweeted a picture of like the chicken emoji because I guess they don't have a Gamecock, but he tweeted like a chicken emoji with a laughing face. So I think we know where his loyalties lie.
The spirit of Spencer Rattler cursed Oklahoma.
And then any other game you want to touch on before we go into this coming week?
Well, I want to talk about a couple games that have happened so far in Week 9, and just some weekday games. Let's talk about some of the weekday games, just as a little bit of a transition right now. The first game that I do want to talk about, freaking Liberty lost, fumbled the bag, freaking choked, whatever you want to call it, against an 0-6 Kennesaw State team. Kenny State comes away with their first win in FBS history. 27 to 24 against an undefeated Liberty game. For our audio listeners, Gareth keeps on pointing up signs during this podcast, and this time he put up the sign "Eat shit, Liberty." Listen, I used to be really high on Liberty, and like I used to really like Liberty, but just recently, Liberty fans have been getting a little bit on my nerves lately. Just ever since the App State game was canceled. That left a really poor taste in my mouth. Liberty, the football team, I try to separate the football team from the fan base, but I
don't know. Their quarterback and their players did tweet some stuff about that game being canceled.
I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. You're on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. I try to stay off.
Pull up Kenneth Salter's Twitter account, their quarterback.
No. Okay.
I'm just saying. Well, there's no need to separate the team and the players because they made it clear how they felt too.
All right. Well, I'll say this. Liberty has a very weak... Gareth pulls up "Eat Shit Liberty" and "Karma is a Bitch" on his paper signs. For those of you who can't, who are listening to the podcast. But I will say this: Liberty has a very weak schedule, and a lot of the fans have been saying that they deserve a shot at the playoff. They deserve to be ranked because they're 5-0. Why are they being snubbed? I'm sorry, you can't come back from losing to Kennesaw State. I love the Owls. I'm pretty sure everybody listening to this, if you played NCAA, like the college football 25, you're very familiar with Kennesaw State just being the lovable underdogs that they are. But they have not won a game so far, but they get their first win. They rushed the field. I love to see it. It was good, and like just great game to watch. Great game to watch. I'm happy to see Kennesaw State come away with their first win in the FBS history and the first win of the season. A shout out Kennesaw State. And the last game I want to talk about just happened tonight. Thursday. It was Thursday night football. Pitt versus Syracuse. Pittsburgh absolutely handles Syracuse. McCord, 5 interceptions on the game. The Pitt defense was absolutely ruthless and just absolutely murdered, was the main cause of this loss for Syracuse. This Pitt defense was scary, and I'm sure Kyle McCord is going to be having nightmares just about how tough this Pitt defense was. You got any takeaways from it, Garrett?
Yeah, I will say, Kyle McCord accounted. This is gonna sound weird. Kyle McCord accounted for 21 of Pitt's 41 points. He threw 3 pick sixes to start the game. At halftime, Eli Holstein, who amazing quarterback, by the way, I'd argue one of the best in the country right now, had 45 yards passing at halftime. And they were up like 30 points. They were up 33 at the half. And they had 70 total yards, 45 in the air, 25 on the ground. Thanks to Kyle McCord. I realize everyone has a bad game, and Kyle McCord has had a great season, but I think this is the Kyle McCord that Ohio State fans were frustrated with last year with like accuracy issues. Now, don't get me wrong. He's a good quarterback. He can ball. He can sling the rock. Similar to the quarterback you talked about earlier, beautiful deep ball. Like just the way he throws the ball, it's aesthetically pleasing to watch. But while aesthetically pleasing, it's kind of ugly when it goes to the other team 5 fucking times. That's like this was supposed to be a dark horse in the ACC after a few games. They were supposed to be really good. Their offense looked nigh unstoppable, but the past couple weeks, I mean, NC State didn't come out with the win, but they kind of rendered the Syracuse offense useless that game. I forget who Syracuse played last week. I know they won, but it wasn't pretty either. And then this week it's just, I think people have just kind of figured out the Syracuse offense and how to stop it. And it's just from there. I'm not saying their offense is gimmicky. In no way is the Syracuse offense gimmicky, but I think people have just kind of figured out how to stop it. And I think Syracuse is still a good team, but they're going to have to figure out a way to pivot and kind of add a few wrinkles here and there into their offense to kind of, not only keep themselves honest, but keeps the defense honest. So people just don't key in on the passing game from here on out, because they were kind of a one-trick pony when it came to offense. They were throwing the ball 60 times a game, and if you just sit back in a 3-3-5, you can kind of put an end to that. But you got any takeaways from this game besides the ones you already stated?
My main takeaway was the Pitt defense on this game, and I think we can now segue into predictions of this coming week of football. That's already a little bit in progress, but I'm going to start it off. UNC, back after a bye, relegated to noon kickoff. They sent your ass to the CW network going in to Charlottesville to take on Virginia Cavaliers team that I'm very concerned. As a UNC fan, as a UNC student, I am very concerned about this game. I hope during this bye we were able to adjust. We were able to just rest up, recover from that horrible loss against Georgia Tech and other horrible losses that we've had before that. and just really recalibrate so we can attack this Virginia team that is very strong. This Virginia team has been proven they can go toe-to-toe with some of the best teams in the ACC. And as a UNC fan, I'm not too high on UNC right now. But this is a game that UNC can use to really prove that they have what it takes to come back and make a bowl game. This was a game at the beginning of the season. They were like, it's a win. It's a win for UNC. There are no easy wins for UNC right now. UNC's got to take care of business. They got to execute. They got to somehow get out of this 4-game losing streak that we have right now and try to turn this season around. I think if UNC is able to pull this one off, they're going to have a good chance to try to make a run to possibly make a 7-5 season or 6-6 if we're being honest right now. But if UNC loses the game, I do not see us making a bowl game. We need to be firing on all cylinders. We need Jacoby Criswell. We need him playing well. I'm relying. If I'm UNC, I'm relying on Omarion Hampton. He's probably the best offensive player that we have right now. I want to see a more attack on the rushing side and just try to make a cohesive offensive plan. But my main concern has also been this defense lately. The offensive production has been pretty well over the past couple of games. We had good offensive production against Georgia Tech, and we had good offensive production against Pitt. But just the defense, we need to be able to hold in the fourth quarter. That's just been the theme. We can't let up these 75-yard runs. We can't collapse when the offense needs us most. If I'm on the defense, I want to see that this bye week was really taken into account, and the defense rested up and was able to scheme for this offensive attack that UVA is going to have. It's a rivalry game. I'm not high on UNC, but I think they have what it takes to win. Do I think they are going to? I don't know. That's to be seen. But I think UNC has the means to win. I don't think they if they can't psychologically keep it together, I don't see them winning. But if they keep it together, they can win.
I agree. I will say you guys do have the firepower to keep up with UVA. I will say their defense is a little UVA's defense is a little suspect at times, so I do think that does. I feel like it's a good matchup, and I feel like if you can exploit that, and I know you said you're not high on UNC's defense, but if you can if UNC can hold it together for just a little bit longer than UVA can, I think you can outlast them. But
absolutely.
I do think if UNC wins, it's not necessarily going to be a shootout. It's going to be a way where you find a way to slow down UVA, or UVA has you either find a way to slow them down, not completely stop them, but slow them down, kind of get them off their rhythm, or you just catch them on a day where their offense just isn't clicking. I see that's, and it'll be not low scoring, but I feel like if it's a shootout, that's going to play into UVA's hands just with how Calandria has been playing at quarterback.
Yeah.
He had his bad year last year. He had his true freshman season where he was just getting the absolute shit beat out of him. Dude had nothing going for him last year. But I feel like you can find a way to disrupt him or just kind of get him off his rocker. I feel it's the ACC. Anyone can win on any given day. I'll always lead with that. But I feel like if you guys can just,
unless you're playing Miami and the refs love them.
Oh yeah, no, we've gotten to that point where they're trying to guarantee that ACC playoff spot.
Yeah, but NC State has a bye this week, I believe.
Thank God. Yes.
All right.
We have a bye. Then coming out of the bye, we've got Stanford, but bye this week. So.
Yeah, bye. So going through, let's go through some predictions. Big, not the big noon, but we'll talk about that soon. But a big afternoon matchup Notre Dame versus Navy. It's a rivalry game. It finally means something for the first time in a long time. Navy is undefeated, 6-0, has their not high flying. It doesn't fly in the air, their offense, but it is an absolute spectacle of a triple option show going up against Notre Dame. Notre Dame has proven that they can beat the big teams, but they can also lose to the little teams. This is a game that I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on, and I'm going to want to watch. I got Notre Dame winning this one, but this is going to be a pivotal game for both teams to win. Playoff hopes are on the line right now.
I agree. I do think Notre Dame has this one in the bag, but I do see a result where Navy does pull this out. I feel like it's at Navy too as well, right?
They're playing East Rutherford, New Jersey.
It's always neutral site.
Okay, so the way it works is when Notre Dame is supposed to play at Navy, it's a neutral site game in a town with a high Navy population. So they either play in San Diego, they play in Baltimore for the Norfolk demographic. They play in New Jersey this time.
Oh, I was just curious because I don't know if this is the Shamrock Series game, or is that not a thing anymore?
That's going to be against Army.
Oh,
also in East Rutherford, New Jersey. But this one technically is a Navy home game, but Notre Dame fans travel good for these games. It's mainly just going to be a neutral site game.
Yeah, and I like I said, I do think Notre Dame can pull this out, but I feel like the Notre Dame offense is going to have to be on their game because this Navy offense has not been we normally see a triple option offense. Like this Navy offense, in terms of points, has been high flying. They're throwing the ball really well for once. They may throw the ball 4 or 5 times a game, but it's for 120 yards. Essentially, it's them hitting a play action pass where it's Army and Navy teams in the past few years have kind of 2013, 2014, Army Navy would throw the ball maybe 5, 6 times a game. Then for about 5 or 6 years there, they'd throw the ball maybe once every 3 weeks. They would run on 3rd and 20 and get it. Now they throw the ball and they will pull up for a play action pass the second you least expect it. And these quarterbacks, I heard one of the ESPN guys talking. He said this is the first time in a while that he's I believe these 2 triple option quarterbacks could succeed in an actual spread offense, a pass heavy offense. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I don't wince every time they throw the ball like Navy and Army quarterbacks the past. But I do think Notre Dame handles business here, but their offense is going to have to be on because Navy's going to try and control the clock. Triple option offenses always do that, but they're playing a bigger team. They're going to try and control the clock. They're going to try and essentially do what Northern Illinois does, good run game and control the clock. And if Navy is controlling the clock, Notre Dame's going to have to be efficient with their drives. They're going to have to come away with points. Riley Leonard's going to have to be connecting on deep balls. He can't have to win, you always have to be on, but I feel like Notre Dame's really going to have to be on to watch themselves. Are they most likely going to win this? Yes, but I feel like with it being a rivalry game and just shifty stuff always happens in rivalry games, Navy is going to have to be well oiled too, but I feel like Notre Dame's going to have to be on their game.
Absolutely. College game day going to Bloomington, Indiana for Indiana versus Washington. I'm high on Indiana right now. I got Indiana winning this game.
I do too. I feel like Indiana, especially after that Nebraska game. Nebraska's a good team. They were 4-1 going into that, but I feel like that Nebraska game that answered a lot of questions for me for Indiana. I wasn't sure. I'm because some teams can get pretty high in the rankings just because they upset one team and then they kind of just have a bunch of easy games and then they kind of taper off. They'll be 6-1, 7-1 will be around 8th in the AP poll, but then they'll have a slide that goes under the radar, and then you get to the end of the season, they're sitting at 19th, and you're like, what the fuck happened? But I don't think that's the case for Indiana. I'm really excited to see this. I feel like this win against Washington could propel them into the top 10 based on depending on how other teams perform. But I think, it's at home for Indiana. I feel like they're going to handle business, and I feel like they're going to win by a little more than the predicted 6.5. I think it's going to be a double-digit win for them.
Going into the 3:30 time slot, CBS, we got Oregon against Illinois. I really want the Illini to have a good showing on this one, but I just think Oregon's too strong for this, and that Oregon's offense is just going to handle Illinois. I don't think Illinois has the offensive firepower to keep up on this one. I got Oregon.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, while Altmaier and Gabriel have similar stat lines, I just think Illinois has a very prototypical Big Ten offense. They don't come out in the same formations as the prototypical Big Ten offense, but they run a Big Ten offense out of essentially shotgun instead of the I formation. So it's like Aiden said, they're not going to be able to keep up. If Illinois does win, it's because they controlled the clock and Oregon wasn't able to finish. But I think Oregon might lay it on in this game. If I were a betting man, I'd say Oregon's going to lay it on to Illinois here.
Speaking of bets, one weird bet line right now, UCF versus BYU. Earlier this program, I said that BYU should be on upset alert, but Vegas has UCF winning by 2 points on this one. With this, do you think this is gonna, knowing that BYU is the technical underdog on this one, do you think this is gonna have any play on the mentality behind BYU?
Not necessarily. I think they're going to come out they're a scrappy team. I mean, they kind of they've got athletes all around. I do think that while UCF has played well in their last couple of games, I do think there may be a little bit of a hangover from trying to hang with Iowa State. I think they'll be a little tired from that. BYU coming off of a close one, I think they're going to want to have a get-back game where, it is impressive to, pull out a game where, you were kind of down in the beginning. It's a game you should win, but, it's adversity. And I think BYU is going to want to come out with something to prove because there were people in the media going, oh, well, they kind of let Oklahoma State hang around. And I feel like they're going to be out to prove something. And I think they're not going to blow out UCF, but I think they'll handle them. UCF still, I feel like, is a team better than their record suggests. But I don't know if KJ Jefferson will be back this week because he missed the last game. But we'll see. I don't think it affects their mentality at all. I think their mentality was kind of set after how their previous game against Oklahoma State went. So they're out to prove something.
Absolutely. I got BYU in this game. Alabama versus Missouri. Experts are saying Alabama wins this one big. I think it's going to be closer than the experts think. I'm not liking the Alabama momentum right now. Alabama has no momentum going into this one. Mizzou kind of has a little bit of momentum with the big Brady Cook win last week. They might be having a little mentality. They got something to prove, but I think Alabama's going to take this one, but it's going to be closer than the experts think. That's my opinion.
I agree. Alabama's gonna have to play better than they have because with the momentum Mizzou has, if they're off their game, I think Mizzou may not win it, but I feel like if Alabama's not on their game from the get-go, it could be a really stressful affair for them. And I'm talking the bars in Tuscaloosa are already going to be rocking, but the bars in Tuscaloosa there's going to be a lot of alcohol consumed. Maybe in households, not just at the game, in households, if Alabama doesn't come out firing on all cylinders. Because while Mizzou hasn't looked as good as they have in the past seasons, they still are Mizzou. They still have a lot of upside. They have, in the Texas A&M game, you said Texas A&M has everything to lose. Mizzou doesn't. We've got two teams here that essentially can't afford to lose another game. Alabama, being two losses, could make the playoff with 2 losses in my mind, but that's just because they're Alabama. The committee would probably let a 3-loss Alabama in, if I'm being honest. Mizzou, I don't think, has that privilege. I don't think the committee would let a 2-loss Mizzou in without being the SEC champion. So I feel like this is a must-win game for Mizzou. I do think Alabama comes out on top, but I do think it is a lot closer than the line is as well. I agree.
How are we feeling about keeping it in the SEC? I'm excited for this game.
Give me fucking
Texas. Vandy.
Give me fucking Vandy.
My mind is telling me Texas, but my body is telling me give me Vandy on this one.
Give me the Vanderbilt triple option offense. Vandy's spread triple option. Alabama couldn't handle it. Texas hasn't played a triple option team this year. I think the triple option is going to take them off guard again. Give me fucking Vandy.
We're not making money on this one. You know what? I'm not getting these ESPN big banks. I'm giving Vandy. I'm putting my money on Vandy right now. Let's
go pop your legacy game part 2.
Listen. Vandy, I love you. And I wouldn't. My thing is just like Texas has something to prove on this game. If Texas beat Georgia, I honestly would probably be going for Vandy right now. But the fact that just Texas has something to prove, I'm choosing Texas. I'm sorry, I don't have the balls you do on this one. But if Vandy pulls this off, I will be happy to be wrong, and I will. I'm not going to be doing like any of these crazy things that you see on Twitter, where like nothing's fulfilled. But I'm buying Vandy. I'm buying Vandy merch all over. If Vandy pulls this one, I'm rocking it. I'm rocking it next episode.
Fuck it, I will too. Let's go. Gareth and Aiden will be in Vandy merch next episode if they beat Texas.
The Vandy special.
The Vandy special. Up next,
anything else?
LSU, Texas A&M.
Why is the most important game in the SEC the most boring game of the SEC this week?
They've got Texas A&M at -1, so battle for who stays first place.
I don't know.
It's at Kyle Field.
I hate Brian Kelly. I'm going Texas A&M on this one. I think Texas A&M really got their stuff together after that Mizzou win, and I think they're going to be bringing this. I think they're going to be bringing it to LSU. LSU is a very strong team, and I like them, but I'm feeling Texas A&M on this one, and Kyle Field night game. I'm going Texas A&M on this one.
Yeah, I am too. LSU is
Damn it,
not
why
really...
won't you disagree with me?
I don't know. I was the one who convinced you for the Vandy one. We started off disagreeing.
I chose Texas. I walked it back. I chose Texas. So,
I'm not sure about this game. LSU is one of those teams where I'm not sure how to feel about them because, they barely beat Ole Miss, and yes, Ole Miss is highly ranked, but I'm actually not very high on them.
We gotta win out.
Theoretically, yes. Theoretically, yes, you do have to win out. But are you going to? No.
No.
That's theoretically, do NC State and UNC have to win out? Yes. But are they going to? No. LSU is just a team I don't know how to feel about. It's just there's a lot of questions in my mind that still need to be answered. There's some good wins and then some head-scratching losses, namely the USC loss. Yeah. So I think I'll go with Texas A&M. Still kind of scratching my head at them after their showing against Mississippi State, but Mississippi State's in the past 3 weeks has given some teams a run for their money. teams that should have blown them out, they've hung around. So I'll okay that for
Mississippi
Texas
State
A&M.
might be the best one win team.
Yeah, they might be the best 1-6 team we've ever seen.
I mean, they're better than FSU and they're better than Purdue when it comes to being the worst teams in the Power Four. So I'll give them that.
So Texas ended up winning 35-13 over Mississippi State. But at halftime in Austin, Texas, it was 13-7 for Mississippi State. Next week at Georgia needs a 10-point fourth quarter to pull away from Mississippi State in Athens. Last week, Mississippi State takes Texas A&M to the wire. This may be the best 1-6 team we've ever seen. This team is literally a victim of their record. This team is literally a victim of their tough schedule. This is who we thought Florida was going to be in. Florida sitting at 4-3.
Yeah.
But Florida starts the gauntlet this week.
Yes.
Florida starts the gauntlet. They may finish 5-7. Any other games you think look forward to?
Not in the college football realm, but let's bring it to the MLB now. World Series. Gonna keep this short since we're running on time right now. But we got the New York Yankees versus the LA Dodgers. This is probably going to be I'm very high on this matchup for the MLB. It's going to be a good game, great TV ratings. You got two of the best players in the MLB right now, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani. It's going to be a good show out. I got the Dodgers winning this one, but I'm really interested to see how this one turns out. This is probably one of the first World Series matches in a while that I'm seeing a lot of buzz around, and a lot of people are excited to see it, which I think is good for baseball right now. Baseball has been a little bit not getting the popularity that it needs, and I'm excited to be watching this one starting Friday night.
I agree, and there's something to be said where it's like you don't see this a lot anymore in sports, just with how sports changes. It's nice to see two historic teams duke it out. It's regardless of the sport, that's good for it. Like just for a championship game, watching two the Dodgers have been good in recent years, but the Yankees haven't been good till fairly recently. They had kind of a rough patch, but now past couple of years they're back on. But I just think there's something that's just fun about watching two historic teams. They are good now, but in their heyday, they're real, what they're known for is in the past, and these are two historic teams. So I feel like that already just makes it good to watch, and you'll get a good show anytime there's Shohei Ohtani.
Absolutely.
He will always produce, whether it be pitching or hitting. He is probably the best all around player in the MLB. So this will be entertaining to watch.
NBA season just started. I want to give my way too early NBA Finals predictions. I'm always high on Giannis Antetokounmpo. I want to say that I'm predicting the Bucks to take the East, and as it pertains to the West, it's always going to be a toss-up. I like the Dallas Mavericks. But I don't think they're with the addition of Klay Thompson and how he's been playing lately. I don't see him making a deep run. But I'm going to probably pick the Minnesota Timberwolves for the West. I really like Anthony Davis. And I think the Timberwolves are primed for a big run eventually. But it's way too early to tell, so I don't know what I'm talking about. And the NBA is probably one of the fields that I'm least knowledgeable in. But give me the Bucks, give me the Timberwolves. That's what I think. I don't know if you have any opinions on it. I just wanted to throw it in there.
Yeah, I'm not very well versed on the NBA. The most I know about is from my girlfriend because she's a Celtics fan. But I'll give my way too early too. I do think, in the limited knowledge I do know, The Timberwolves are probably one of the best teams in the West. I'll go a little bit different direction for the East. This team has a winning record for the first time in years right now. Give me the fucking 1-0 Charlotte Hornets. Give me the fucking Charlotte Hornets. We won a game.
Whoa.
We won a game. Give me the
Charlotte
fucking
Hornets.
Charlotte Hornets.
Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets. Whoa,
Yeah,
whoa, whoa,
give me the
whoa.
Hornets.
Hornets. All right. You want to bring up soccer or?
Sure, yeah, I'll touch on some things, some big news in soccer. I mean, obviously, the U.S., after hiring Mauricio Pochettino, England turned around and hired a big-name manager for themselves. Thomas Tuchel, most notably known for his UEFA Champions League win with Chelsea back in 2020-2021 season, taking over at his time at PSG, Bayern Munich, very experienced coach. Can he handle the excessive demands of the England fans? I'm not sure, but he's dealt with it before. But he plays a very exciting brand of soccer, and it'll be fun to watch. Only other thing I'd like to touch on is there's been a lot of stuff going on with the Christian Pulisic controversy with just his ongoing injuries and him leaving the U.S. camp early. I just want to go out there and put it out there for the record that I agree with the decision for him to go back early. Yes, that Mexico game was a rivalry game, but it was a friendly. We had a really battered roster, and there was no need to go out there and get hurt in a game that's historically chippy, especially with, not to be too prideful about the U.S., but we're in the Nation League knockout stage. We're in a semifinal against Jamaica in November. On the other side of the bracket, looming is Mexico. So we're on a collision course with Mexico in an actual meaningful game. There was no need, especially in the past matchups with the U.S. and Mexico that have been really chippy. There's been injuries. People have had to get stitches as a result of shit happening. There was no need to put them out there in a hostile environment in Mexico and get them hurt in a friendly match. In a match where we were already tinkering with tactics, so just adding the confusion and chaos. And I will say, I do think that was the right move. Christian Pulisic statistically is one of the top players in the Italian Serie A right now through 8 games. He's got 5 goals, 3 assists. And I know a lot of Euro snobs, which for those of you who don't know, Euro snobs is a very broad term. It can be used for sports. It can also be used for the people on social media who are like, look at the American and their sugar diet. Oh my God. But Euro snobs, they're not very high on American players. They hate the American League. They hate MLS. I don't hate MLS. I just don't think it's as good as it thinks it is. But, I still love MLS. I mean, hell, I'm a Charlotte fan. And
would you say MLS is just as good as what is it, the league below the Premier League,
the championship, the championship, yeah. I'd say they're about that, and I'd say they're getting better. Especially it's no longer a retirement league, but I feel like it's getting a lot better. They're starting to get into a better brand of soccer. Like they're starting to play fluid soccer as opposed to just kind of when I watched it 10 years ago when there was David Beckham and Landon Donovan and stuff like that. My dad would watch it with me, and he talked about how we also watched the Premier League. We were very into the Premier League. We have Premier League teams. My dad and I still get up early on Saturdays to watch them. It was just kind of scary back then how more similar MLS looked to my middle school games back then than MLS did to European games. The European games, they were fluid. There was strategy. You still had teams that kicked and chased, but that was really only the smaller teams who didn't have either the skill or the speed to play possession or pressing-based soccer, which for those who know, pressing-based soccer is when you lose the ball instead of sitting back and defending, you send multiple players forward to try and go get it back. Or possession, which is just where you hold on the ball, kind of work it around, wear a team down. But he'd always remark how the MLS games looked a lot more like my middle school games than other professional leagues. And I feel like if you look at MLS now, there's a lot more teams that play that possession-based style. It looks beautiful. It actually looks like soccer now. And while I am high on it, I don't think it's as good as certain American fans do. But, the Euro snobs will always call it a farmers league. So we can never win with them. But, hey, our players are doing well abroad. Do I always prefer our players to play abroad as opposed domestically in the U.S.? Yes. MLS soccer is a more physical brand of soccer. Lots of injuries. It's entertaining as hell to watch. Lots of stuff that should be red cards isn't even called fouls. There's a name for it. It's literally, there's a phrase for it that people just call it. It's just CONCACAF. For those who don't know what that means, CONCACAF is, so FIFA is subdivided based on federations. So the federations, it's North and Central America are one, South America, Africa, Asia, and then Europe and parts of the Middle East are in the same one. And then the other half of the Middle East is in Asia for that. And the one North American one, Central American one's called CONCACAF, which is the Confederation of North and Central American Football. But it's just CONCACAF's a fun phrase when it comes to just the physical brand of soccer. I'm gonna have to show Aiden some of these Nations League games in November. Aiden, you might be confused. You might be like, "Is this American football?" Because you will see players get tackled, and the ref will be like, "Play on, play on, play on." Like,
Nice.
My favorite thing was, okay, it applies to Conan Bowl too, which is the South American one. A lot of Europeans didn't watch Copa America until this recent year. You should have seen Twitter. They were losing their mind. They're like, "What is this? The cartel pretty much just called out a hit on this dude and it wasn't a foul." And people are like, "This is just soccer in the Americas. It's more physical." So, like I said, I do agree with our players going abroad because they've got better technical development over there. Like, toughness can be learned, but the technical development is just so much better in Europe. So I prefer our players playing over there, like Pulisic playing in Italy, looking fantastic. But really all I have to say. I mean, U.S. players looking good. Hopefully Gio Reyna, Tim Weah, and kind of the rest of the gang can get healthy before the Jamaica game, because while we dominate Jamaica historically, this is a game we have lost before. Jamaica has knocked us out of tournaments before. This is not the Jamaica team that did that. That Jamaica team was the best Jamaica team in history, with players like Wes Morgan, Leicester City legend, won the league with them. That one fateful year, probably the year Aiden knew the most about soccer was when Leicester won. I didn't even have to tell Aiden. I walked into school. Aiden goes, "Leicester won the league." I'm like, "What? What do you mean? You know?" And Aiden's like, "Yeah, Leicester won the league." He's like, "Wasn't there a greater chance of Michael Jackson being found alive?" I'm like, "Yeah." And all Aiden said for a week was, "Leicester won the league." Oh my God. But yeah, Wes Morgan, Leicester City legend. But I really don't see the U.S. losing that game in November. But that's more for a later show, as that game's not for a month. But, we'll talk about that. College basketball to come in later episodes. Anything else you want to touch on today, Aiden?
I want to end this off with recapping the PFL and bringing up predictions for UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. Just going over the PFL fights. I want to talk about some big winners and of the night. Johnny Albion beat Fabian Edwards in an upset. I predicted Fabian Edwards to win this one. I don't know what I was thinking. Johnny just has the better style of fighting, and he was able to take the fight in a unanimous decision. I'm still high on the Edwards family, but Eblin is definitely a force to be reckoned with, and I'm going to be looking into him more. He's undefeated in his MMA career, and I'm excited to see where he goes. Chris Cyborg won her fight. This really doesn't do much to affect her legacy in MMA. She's already made a name for herself with her temporary time in the UFC and eventually getting kicked out. But I really like seeing her win, so that's a good win. And the biggest win of the night was the main header, Francis Ngannou knocking out Ferreira in round 1, 3 minutes into the fight. This was an absolute murder. Ferreira had Ngannou in like one really sketchy situation. He was about to pull the submission triangle on him. But Francis Ngannou just basically said Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu doesn't exist and just popped out of it and just started absolutely throwing haymakers on a down Ferreira. For this, I think the big winners of the night, Francis Ngannou just won, but I'm going to say the PFL has kind of lost in this. Ngannou doesn't have any more heavyweight fights that he can really fight in the PFL, which is good for him because he's been dabbling in boxing. Had a fight against Tyson Fury a couple months ago that actually some people said Ngannou won. And Ngannou, I'm still very high on him. But right now, what the MMA world on TikTok and Twitter and everybody's been saying is just like the big what ifs. Like, what if Ngannou stayed in the UFC and was able to fight John Jones and Tom Aspinall? Because those are like the two main like heavyweight names right now, like that are like entering everyone's mind. I would love to see a world where the PFL would do a cross-fight promotion with the UFC. I don't think it's likely, but right now I don't see a future with Ngannou fighting MMA anymore. I think he's going to be transitioning more into boxing, which is good for him. I want him to get his bag and do what he needs to do, but it leaves more of a like sad, a bittersweet happiness for me. I'm glad he was able to get the win with all the adversity, with his like son dying. It was a really good feel good moment, a very powerful scene once he knocked Ferreira out. Just Ngannou sitting like on top and just contemplating everything. It was a very emotional scene, but it was just like this bittersweet if you're an MMA fan, because you're just going to be sitting down years from now just wondering what if. But with that being said, we're going to be bringing up a big fight this week, UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. I'm really excited for this card. Under card prelims start at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, with the main pay-per-view starting around 2 o'clock. Going through the pay-per-view, I'm going to highlight a couple of really interesting fights that I think are going to be have major implications for the future of different divisions. Number one, the first fight on the pay-per-view is going to be Sharab Magomedov versus Armenian Petro. I'm really bad at these Armenian names. Petrosayan. Magomedov is from Dagestan, and one thing I really like about his style of fighting is he's actually has a strong striking game, which is something that's very uncommon with a lot of these Dagestani fighters. Most of them come out of Dagestan with a very strong wrestling portfolio. Magomedov has a good wrestling base, but he's also shown to have a very powerful striking game, especially in a kick game. I expect him to be utilizing it a lot, and I expect him to come away with the win on this one. Going through the next couple of fights, in the middle of the fight, this is going to be a very important fight for the future of the light heavyweight division. Alex Pereira has been dominating the light heavyweight division, but there has been one person that has fleeted him, and he has not been able to get a fight with yet, and that's Magomed Ankalaev. Magomed is a very strong wrestler, and that's like one of the weaknesses that Alex Pereira doesn't have. But this week, Magomed is going against Alexander Rashkic. And a lot of fans, including myself, want to see need to see a big win from Magomed in order to justify a fight with Alex Pereira. Magomed has been seen as a boring fighter. He specializes in grappling, but he's mainly been using his time grappling just to get on top and not really be dominant, but just be dominant enough to get decision wins. And that really plays a factor since you consider the fact that he only fights in Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi, where the judges there tend to bias and leverage towards either Russian or fighters from the Middle East. We can get into the politics of that, but that's a very interesting fact. But the fact is, a lot of these fighters that are fighting on this card only fight once every year or once every 2 years. And that's just because the UFC only does events here like rarely, and most of other venues in the US, Europe, they just don't allow most of these fighters to fight there. For example, just bringing it back, Shahram Magomedov, he does not have one of his eyes, and no basically governmental body in the United States, Canada, Europe will allow him to fight, but the Saudi Arabians do because he brings out a really good crowd for the high Muslim population. And it's very interesting, like politics behind the scenes. I can go into it more on a different video, but just bringing it back to light heavyweight, we need to see Magomed Ankalaev have a big win in order to justify a title shot against Alex Pereira. And the UFC says this. He said, if Dana White said, if you put on a show, you will get your title shot with Alex Pereira. But if you don't expect anything, because right now the UFC really wants to bank on the fact that Alex Pereira remains undefeated in the light heavyweight division, so he can go up and eventually fight in the heavyweight division, which I think would be interesting. But I think if there's one person that can take Alex Pereira down, it would be Magomed Ankalaev. But as a fan, I'm not sure if I want to see Magomed Ankalaev be the light heavyweight champion, just because I don't want to have an inactive champion that only fights once every year or once every 2 years. That's just going to hold up the light heavyweight division, and I would probably not be paying attention to the light heavyweight division as much as I am if he is the champion, which is unfortunate. But if he puts on a good fight against Alexander Rajkic, I think he can make a case for that title shot. I got Magomed Ankalaev taking this, but for me, it's all just going to be relying on the fact that he's got to put on a good show for this fight. Bringing it back up, another fight I'm really interested in seeing is Robert Whitaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev has been inactive for the past 2 years due to injuries, and Khamzat is making his return in Abu Dhabi. Khamzat has faced some controversy in the past for being close alliance with a couple warlords in the Middle East and Russia. Actually, he has been shown on social media with a Chechnyan warlord, and that's very interesting. But Khamzat Chimaev, I've been seeing his interviews recently. He used to have this really sharp edge to him. Like, he was very in your face. There was one infamous fight where he took down Kevin Holland after failing to make weight to fight Nick Diaz. But he took on Kevin Holland, and after dismantling Kevin Holland, he went on the mic and told a crowd that I am going to kill everybody. I want to kill everybody. Bring them on. I kill everybody. He's kind of actually lost his edge to him. Some people say it's probably because he's married with kids now, and he's just kind of mellowed out over the past 2 years. But What's interesting is the fact that Khamzat Chimaev went to be he used to be one of the most active fighters back in 2020 when he was making his UFC debut. He was fighting almost once every 2 months, but now he's at a point where he's no longer a rising prospect, and he's just getting his first fight for the first time in 2 years, which is insane. But I'm excited to see him, and I'm excited to see his wrestling, but I'm going to pick the upset Robert Whittaker to win this one just because Robert has the more powerful striking, and I'm just not necessarily sold on Khamzat right now, and I don't know how he's going to hold up in the ring since I have not seen him fight in a long time. This brings us to the main event. We have Ilya Topora and Max Holloway fighting for the featherweight title. For those of you who don't know, okay, so Ilya Topora, he is the new rising star in featherweight. He is the champion. He is the guy now, essentially. And he took down Alexander Volkanovski, who was considered to be the goat in featherweight. He has a really strong arsenal when it comes to striking. He's all about power, and he's just an absolute beast at 144, which he has very powerful strikes for a guy at 144. But this brings us into Max Holloway, who is the seasoned veteran at featherweight. Max Holloway was recently won a fight in the lightweight division, where he won what is called the BMF title. The BMF title stands for the Baddest Motherfucker title, which is an unofficial championship that's kind of has a very weird history. It was literally just made by Dana White just to sell more tickets. But in this, his last fight against Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway just put on an absolute show and knocked out Justin Gaethje at the last second after having the most dominant, one of the most dominant fights. And a lot of fans and have started to really gravitate to Max Holloway more after this fight because this knockout, you got to look it up. It's very impressive. I don't think it's the best knockout in UFC history, but you can definitely make a case for it to be so. Max Holloway is more seasoned when it comes to he's fought more, and he's 32. This is probably going to be his last fight in featherweight because I just see him going up to lightweight full time, and after this fight. But honestly, just the state of featherweight is really weird right now because what Ilya Topora wanted was he wanted to probably fight Sean O'Malley. He probably wanted Sean O'Malley to go up from bantamweight to fight him in featherweight because that was supposed to be a big fight. But Sean O'Malley lost his belt. So now Ilya Topora is just kind of trying to figure out what to do in featherweight. And he wants to go from featherweight now to lightweight. And Max Holloway also wants to go from featherweight to lightweight now, just because the division has been kind of ransacked and everybody is kind of done with it right now. And for this fight, I'm going to probably say I got Ilya Topora for it. I like Max Holloway more, but I think Ilya Topora just has the better striking. But if this does go to decision, I do see Max Holloway coming away with it. But I see Ilya Topora probably taking it away in the third round by knockout.
Definitely, and I've definitely heard you talk about some of those, at least that in Abu Dhabi, you talking about the kind of just a little bit of the bias, how certain American can throw a punch and they're like nothing.
Yeah,
But
it's not even Americans. It's literally anyone that's just not Muslim.
and then a Muslim dude gets like a slight glancing blow in the last 60 seconds, and no matter what happened in the previous rounds of the fight, all of a sudden it's a win for them. And
Yeah.
then the certain players who only fight in Abu Dhabi because they're not allowed in the U.S. for various reasons.
Interesting reasons.
Interesting reasons. And they conveniently, there won't be any women on the card either, which you know.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
they're not people over there.
Yeah.
You anything else to add today? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's about it.
Well, I think that'll do it for us here at Tobacco Road and Abroad. Thank you for listening in. This was a little bit longer of an episode, but we did have a lot to cover. So thank you for listening on YouTube and on Spotify, and thank you guys for listening in.